Hi, my name is Chiara Blakely, and I will be talking about the theater tradition of English pantomime. According to Merriam-Webster, pantomime, often called panto, is a kind of theater entertainment usually performed around Christmas and the New Year in Britain and a few other English-speaking countries. It must not be confused with miming, which is just acting with gestures but no speech. Pantomime is known for its comedy and audience participation. It is also usually meant for children, however, it can also be directed to adults. Pantomimes take place around Christmas time and are nearly always based off of well-known children's stories such as Peter Pan, Aladdin, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, and many more. And this was according to Historic UK. Michael West, an academic leader of the arts in Luxembourg, explains that pantomime is a very comedic type of drama, having its main roots from circuses and commedia dell'arte. Everything is very unsophisticated, and there's always a comical female character played by a male, which they refer to as the pantomime dame, and a male romantic lead, which is played by a woman, which they refer to as the principal boy. Pantomime has a long theatrical history in Western culture, dating back to the classical theater, and is developed partly from the 16th century commedia dell'arte, which was formed in Italy. The Historic UK explains that pantomime literally means all kinds of mime. It is generally acknowledged that British pantomime is a modeled and early masks of the Elizabethan and Stuart days. In the early 1723, the managers of Drury Lane produced a pantomime entitled Harley Quinn, Dr. Faustus, which was one of the more elaborate performances given at the Lincoln Inn Fields, and this may be considered the first performance of pantomime. Audience participation is widely encouraged by children and adults. When the villain comes on, they are encouraged to boo, and as the hero enters, they are encouraged to cheer. The British Players Organization had stated that pantomime first arrived in England as minor acts to opera pieces, eventually evolving into separate shows. In Restoration England, a pantomime was considered a very low form of opera. In fact, the Lincoln Inn Field and Drury Lane Theatre were the first to stage something like real pantomimes, which prompted some competition between the two theatres to see who could create more elaborate shows and outdo the other. So, in English pantomime, there are 5 main stock characters. Based on the ungathered information from the World Theatre Heritage Encyclopedia, there are the principal boy, which is traditionally a young woman in men's clothing, and this principal boy is the main character or the hero. Pantomime dame is traditionally a middle-aged man dressed in drag to depict the hero's mother. Principal girl is a young woman, which is often the hero's lover. A comic lead or fairy godmother or father, which is played by a man or woman, and this is the comic lead is the one that communicates to the audience, and they're almost a narrator to the story of what's going on. And of course, there's the villain, and the villain is played by either a man or a woman, and in these stories, they are often depicted as wicked wizards, witches, and demons. The purpose of this theater type is to entertain in a comedic style of theater. In my presentation, I will be looking at the movement made by certain characters. So much like the Lazzi commedia dell'arte, the peasants, or lower class, are very skittish and they wail their arms about, and they are very improper. Whereas the more sophisticated characters walk with authority and motives. This allows the audience to understand clearly the different levels of social class that they are portraying. After closely looking at these stock characters in pantomime, I saw that 2 of them very distinctly showed different levels of Lecoq's tension. The level that the villain displays is a high level of passion. The reason I believe this is because the villain is the one who has so much passion for revenge, and they have so much anger in them, so they absorb this and they set out emotion to show that this is what they're feeling. Whereas the level of tension for a comedic lead or godmother or father, they express a sense of alertness and awareness to what's going around them, because they they're the lower class, so they kind of are scared of the upper class and the villains and all the higher characters, but they also look out and they're looking and talking to the audience, so they're connecting with the audience on the level that they're all the same to them. Practitioner Anne Bogart talks about the aspects of movement and the different ways your body can create different meanings. And Bogart also expresses through her 9 viewpoints that movement is involved in everything that you do. And the way you move, the duration of your movements, and the tempo that you move can overall affect the message or storyline of your production. In my studies of the viewpoints and the stock characters, the comedic characters move at a very quick pace and utilize all the space that they can, compared to the villains and the main characters, where they move with poise and have slow, controlled movements and know where they're going. So the character I'm going to mainly be focusing on is the evil Baroness from the production of Cinderella. She walks with authority with one hand on her hip, and when she talks, she puts her chin up in the air and her chest is out. She doesn't move her whole body because she's very proper, and she just kind of walks and turns like this. For the evil Baroness, there's also a dark, evil tone music that is played in her presence, so it indicates to the audience when she is arriving and kind of signals them to boo and kind of put their thumbs down towards her. So in my moment of theater, I will be performing a short rant from the evil Baroness as she walks in and sees Cinderella. In this monologue, she is talking to the audience, and she moves very upright and assertive. There are many renditions of the play Cinderella because it is adapting over time to the different audiences and cultures that it's being performed towards. So the performance I will be performing is called the Christmas Cinderella Panto Performance. I hate her. Look at her. She just thinks she's so pretty. I was pretty too. Once. But that's besides the point. She's a peasant. I mean, yes, peasant. Do you want to know why I hate her? Well, she depicts the spitting image of my late husband's wife, who he loved more than he loved me. Outrageous. Ugh. So that was my moment of theater. In my performance, you can see that there is a strong negative tension between not only the Baroness and Cinderella and how she's feeling towards her, but also the Baroness and the audience. In the 17th century, the division of social classes were very distinct. They very distinctly showed that this is the upper class and this is the lower class, and there's no mix between them. The atmosphere that was created in this performance was very hostile towards the Baroness and the audience, and not only the audience, but also towards Cinderella. She gives off a negative and distasteful attitude, which also creates a persona that is very unwelcoming and not inviting. The meaning behind this is to clearly elaborate on the social differences between the characters in this production. The effect of this all coming together for this specific character portrays a dark and evil tone, and she's very hated by the audience and this character on stage. And that encourages the audience more to boo and get her off the stage. So specifically, I chose to focus on movement in this performance because it is a crucial part in performing, and it exaggerates, and these movements show and depict the character's social status. And especially in these times, that was very important to show. I will apply this knowledge of movement in my future performances by focusing more on how movement can depict different social classes, not only social classes, but differences between two other characters on the stage. Because the movement through characters is how the audience can depict what their social class is and how they're acting and towards the characters and the audience. The theater tradition of pantomime is very commonly used today in many productions, and I learned that even though I was very unaware that I was using pantomime, it is everywhere and we are always using it. I found it very interesting about how they rooted from circuses and commedia dell'arte, because circuses are very exaggerated in their movements, and pantomime, although it is very exaggerated, it's just a different sort of form. As I did some more research, I came across that pantomime also rooted from Greek theater and how they kind of are interacting and involving the audience to talk to the bigger picture. I chose to focus on movement because so in my reflection, I will be talking about I will be discussing how I can use movement further in my other performances for my collaborative project, and I will be focusing more on movement, and I can show how and help depict with my other classmates how movement is very important in performing and how it can be used to depict the different characters and the traits. I would like to finish off with a quote by Leigh Hunt from the University of York. "Pantomime is a curious blend of continental and British traditions. The raw energy of music hall, the susness of Victorian burlesque, the crazy chase of Harley Quinn, the acrobatic power, the stereotypical plots of commedia. All of these elements have shaped the pantomimes we enjoy today. The story of pantomime is transformed and is endlessly adapted." Thank you.